Hey, this is JC and welcome to Small Brick City, where we want to help you build a Lego city regardless of the space you have. In this video, I'll be comparing two expert modular buildings, the downtown diner and the corner garage. These are the two most recent expert modular buildings, which are more advanced sets. They both sit on a 32 by 32 base plate, and they're complete buildings in the sense that they do not have open backs, and they're modular in nature because each floor can be separated easily so that you can access the interior. Now, I have made minor modifications to these two sets, so if you see some changes and it doesn't look exactly like the original set, do not worry, that's not important in the context of this particular video. The reason I'm doing this video is because I've been asked many times which one is a better set and which one should be the set that someone would buy if they can only buy one set. Now, I'm not going to go into the obvious reasons such as aesthetic design. If one design appeals to you better, get that one. And I'm also not going to do reviews of these two sets. You can check out great video reviews of these sets on YouTube, and you can look at the fine details and see which appeals to you more. I'm also not going to bring in the price as a factor because the corner garage is slightly more expensive than the diner, and if cost is the only factor that affects your buying decision, then just go with the downtown diner. So I'm not going to consider these in this particular video. In fact, I'm going to look at three different ways that you can compare the two sets so that you can make an informed decision. The first consideration is how you're going to use this expert modular building. Are you going to incorporate it into a Lego city, or are you just going to display it on a shelf? If you're just going to display it on a shelf, you don't have to worry about the orientation of the set or the placement. You just need to have a look at both sets and decide which will look better on your display shelf next to other expert modular buildings that you might have, or maybe you have a particular theme for your display and you want that building to fit within your theme. So that should be pretty straightforward. But if you have a custom Lego city, you do have to think about how these sets can into your space and into your city layout. For example, the corner garage is built as a corner, and this is actually an inset design, although it does function as a corner as well in my opinion. I think it's a lot like the Parisian restaurant, which can be placed in between buildings or can act as a corner building. If you look at the downtown diner in this display, this does look like a corner, probably due to the fact of the bend at this corner over here and the fact that the building doesn't go all the way to the edge of the base plate. So if you have a Lego city and you do not have any space for a corner block, then the corner garage may not fit your particular layout. The other thing to think about is whether your Lego city has roads. The corner garage was designed to be built with roads in mind at either corner so that cars can come in to fill up the petrol. So if you do not have any roads in your Lego city, you might need to think how you're going to place this particular set, or you might need to have makeshift roads so that vehicles can move about. Of course, you can modify the set so that you take out the roads completely and just turn this to a giant sidewalk. And finally, you need to think about the concept of your city. If you have a sprawling city with many different buildings and many different districts, it's probably easy to place either of these two buildings within your city. But if you have a smaller city and you have a concept for the city, it's possible that the diner may or may not fit within your theme. If you've got a 1950s retro vibe to your city, then the diner will fit in perfectly. But if all the other buildings you have generally the same kind of look as with a lot of the expert modular buildings because they do complement each other, then the diner might stand out. But then you can think of it two ways. Some people do not like the fact that it stands out because it sticks out like a sore thumb, but other people are happy that they have one set which stands out from the rest to add a difference to the Lego city, and the justification is that it's a renovated building designed to look like a retro diner. So it is a modern building just designed to look retro. The second consideration when comparing these two sets is pretty important to me, and that is learning design and building techniques from these sets. I find the expert modular buildings and any of the complex buildings really good in showcasing different build techniques, because generally the Lego designers do try to think of different techniques and different ways of creating different structures with the different parts. So it's really good exposure to different design techniques and build methods. and I always appreciate this about the bigger sets. And that's why I like the Ninjago city set so much. Even though it's technically not an expert modular building, it is built like one, and there are just so many creative techniques used to create different parts. For example, the use of the crowbars to create a roof, that is really creative, and it inspires a lot of creative ideas. So if you're into building MOCs or just like to learn about different building techniques for Lego, you generally want to find sets that will inspire you further and give you more ideas as you build the set. In my personal opinion, and based on comments by AFOLs, this particular corner garage build is not as inspired as previous expert modular buildings. Maybe because it is quite uniform, especially for the top two floors. The build techniques are almost identical, the interior is a bit different, but other than that, it can be quite monotonous for these two designs. Obviously, it's good also when you have uniformity in builds. Some people do like that, but in terms of learning techniques, you don't really learn much from either of these two floors after you've built one. There's some snot technique involved with the windows, and there's quite a bit of snot technique involved here to create the decorations. But other than that, there's not much to really learn in terms of the exterior design. One technique they did use for this particular set was to use these rounded corner plates. So there are a lot of 1x2 corner plates which are rounded, and that's what's used to create a lot of these angles. So they didn't use any of these hinging plates or hinging bricks, which is quite typical. So that is a technique that was really explored a lot in this particular build. And if you're looking to build an angled corner or learn how to build angles like this, then this particular technique might be useful for you. There are some mechanical movement devices incorporated into the build, like the lift for the car inside and the garage door, which has this knob over here. And of course, this has been featured in other builds, but I like the fact that they actually camouflaged it to fit in with the concept of the build. So that's a really nice touch. In comparison, I think the Downtown Diner has more to offer when it comes to learning different design and build techniques. If you can see, there are lots of curved parts over here using snot techniques. You can learn how to make a 3D sign. There are different textures involved with recess and the use of snot techniques with these curved tiles. So there's a lot of different techniques that are incorporated within this single build, and I think they're quite atypical, which you don't find in other builds. And simply because of the concept of the diner, this particular technique might not fit another building. Another great technique, I think, is the use of these stairs, which can be incorporated into other MOCs, and the use of these bar elements and clips to create railings. I am a fan of small details for builds, such as the air conditioning compressor over here, this drainage pipe running down the side of the building, the windowsills, all these bar elements, and this ladder which goes up, and there's this rail using this motorcycle handle part, which is really creative. So I get a lot of ideas when I see and build all these little builds, and I can think how I can incorporate them into my own MOCs. You do get quite a bit of variation compared to the corner garage for roof details as well. There's this rounded section of the roof which goes on with the flat roof, and there's also this really cool skylight, which is a very nice simple technique that you can apply for your own buildings. Overall, from a design perspective and how the different techniques come together to create this particular building, I think the Downtown Diner offers more than the corner garage. Another aspect of design and building techniques is the interior, and the Downtown Diner is definitely better decorated on the inside and also more highly detailed than the corner garage. And that's one of the more disappointing things about the corner garage. The interior was a bit lacking, especially when you compare it to previous expert modular buildings. I can't give you an accurate representation by opening these up because I've really added a lot of detail to my own set over here, so you won't be able to see the original design. So I do suggest you do check out reviews and have a look at the interior of both sets, and you'll see what I mean. For me personally, I think the interior details for the corner garage are very basic, and there's not much new to learn, especially if you have experience building other expert modular buildings or even Creator 3-in-1 sets. However, with the Downtown Diner, there's much more interesting builds, and each level is also really distinct. With the Downtown Diner below, there's a gym here and a recording studio over on the top floor. So I do think you'll learn more about interior detailing from the Downtown Diner set. The final consideration I have for you depends on really if you're into mocking, and that is deciding on buying a set if you want specific parts. So many people who do Lego MOCs, which is my own creations, will often buy official sets. Sometimes they buy two and they will build it, and after a while they'll dismantle it to take the parts to build their own MOCs. So if that's something you have in mind, you might want to look at both sets and decide which set offers you better parts for the type of MOCs you want to build. And there's no right or wrong or better or worse answer for this, because it really depends on the MOC you want to build. For the downtown diner, you get a lot of different colors which may or may not be useful for you, because you do get a variety of different parts and different bright colors, but you also get quite a few of the same parts, so you might not have enough to build a full MOC. In fact, these colors remind me of the recent Lego Movie 2 Party Bus. So maybe you could combine those two to create a MOC. However, if you want to build a more traditional building, maybe the corner garage will fit better because you get more uniform parts and more of the same parts in the same color. For example, you get this medium orange color, which is not that common, and you can use that to build a building because you do get quite a lot of those parts. So it really depends on the MOCs you want to build and if you even want to take parts from these sets in the first place. I hope you enjoyed these 3 different ways of comparing these 2 expert model buildings. Let me know if you think I missed out any particular variable and if you think there are other deciding factors when getting one of these sets. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. And as always, if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching and check out these 2 videos before you go.